Hey everybody, welcome back to the rolling bar video series. This is only a two-part series. If you missed part one, you can find a card popping up somewhere. One of these corners, there's a card popping up to part one of this video series, and you can check that out to see where we've got to up to this point. So for part two, we are going to be doing the tabletop. We're going to be doing the trim molding that's going to go around it, the shelves on the inside, sanding everything down, making this thing great and really bringing it together. We're also going to be adding some recessed lighting up under the tabletop to give this a little bit of an extra flair. So for that, what I'm going to start with today is I'm actually going to start with the shelves in here, just because I still have a bunch of pallet wood left over, and I think I want to bring the shelves together with pallet wood as well instead of going out and buying something. So the reason we're using reclaimed wood on this is because it's a lot cheaper than going out to buy lumber right now. So it's definitely keeping our costs down for this. So let's get started. We're going to do the inside shelves back here. All right, so here's the inside of the bar. This one is really self-explanatory. I really don't have to take you guys through how to do this. So we've got our pallet wood laid out through here, and all I have to do is when I bring this one over, I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna measure these 2x4s and cut a notch out with my skill saw here, so this pushes all the way up into the side. And then I'm just gonna measure from here out to here and cut off the boards at the length that I measure, and then we have our tabletop. Now for the rest of this, as far as you can see right here, I'm actually going to put some appearance boards over here just to make it look a little bit nicer, so we're not seeing these 2x4s when we're looking at the back of the bar. So I'm going to have an appearance board there, one up at the top, on the middle, everything just to bring this together to give it a nice clean look. So I'm going to get started cutting these down and installing these. All right, so I've got all the boards of my top shelf already screwed in. So for this last one here, what I had to do is I had to measure from here to here because it is shorter than one of these pallet boards. So mine ended up being 4 13/16, and then I went ahead and cut the grooves out for the 2x4s here. Now if I did everything right, this should just kind of slide in there. Looks like it's a little bit tight, which is just fine. There it is. Last one. So that will complete the top shelf. I'm gonna go ahead and get this screwed down. Do the same exact thing for the bottom shelf. All right, so the inside is now completed. Got both the shelves done. The only thing on this side of the bar that I'll have left to do is gonna be the appearance boards that are gonna go here just to clean the look up a little bit so we don't see just these 2x4s. So the next thing I wanna do is I wanna actually start prepping my trim. So we're gonna put some trim down on the bottom around the whole bar. And then we're also going to be doing some around the edge glued top that we're going to do up here. It's going to be 2 pieces on that. But the first thing that I want to do with that is I have a few different colors of stain that I want to test. So I'm going to try to do some and see exactly what color I want to go with. The pallet wood, it's a bunch of different colors. Some of it is more gray, some of it's more brown, some of it's more tan. So I want to try to find something neutral that accentuates all of the colors of the pallet wood. I don't want to go too dark because then if I go too dark, it's just going to look super contrasted and probably really ugly. So I'm going to try to find something more neutral to go with. All right, so here are the 4 stains that I tested. 2 of them you can't even see. So natural, obviously, is just a regular old stain, pretty much a natural color of wood. And I did Ipswich Pine, which is actually a little bit darker, but even with the lighting in here, you can't really see that one either. You can just see the glossiness of where it's still wet. The 2 that I'm gonna either choose from are gonna be Golden Oak or Early American. I like the Golden Oak because this palette board right here is actually matching that pretty well. The Early American accentuates the darker colored, more grayish brown palettes, which this is one over here. So I'm actually not going to make the decision for this. I'm gonna go get my fiance and I'm gonna let her decide between Golden Oak and Early American. All right, so the fiance has spoken. Early American is the stain that I'm gonna go with. So the first thing that I wanna do while I'm working on this trim work is I'm actually gonna go ahead and stain the bottom trim first. And the reason I'm gonna do that is because I don't wanna get any stain on the pallet wood that is gonna be, really nice and rustic looking, so I don't wanna mess that up. So I'm gonna get everything stained first, and then I'm gonna come back, make my cuts, and then if I need to, I can use a small paintbrush to touch up whatever I missed or anything that got chipped out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. While that is drying, we're gonna work on mounting the tabletop to this. And we're gonna mount that using pocket holes that are gonna be drilled in through the frame here so we can pull the tabletop down from this direction. All right, so we're just about to the point where we're gonna mount the tabletop on this. So for the next part that I want to do is I want to start getting my appearance boards on the back here installed. And the reason for that being is because the appearance boards are about, whatever this is, I think it's about 3/4 inch thick. So that's going to cause our tabletop here to come back just a little bit more to meet with that and be flush, because there is going to be an appearance board on the face of this 2x4 here. So the first thing I need to do is I've got 2 boards already cut. They ended up being 43 and 1/16 inch, and that'll stretch from here all the way down to the bottom of the pallet wood that hangs down. Now I've went ahead and installed this here, and this is just to help me stay flush with the very top of it. And then we're just going to line it up and flush it up with the outer edge of this. So that's what this board is for, 43 and 1/16 inch. So we're going to grab this, bring it right up to the top here, make sure we're flush on the corner. And then I've got my finish nailer here with 1.5 inch finish nails in it. So we're just going to go ahead and pop one in there. So that's in there good. We'll grab one on the other side. And there we go. So that's installed. So now I can run this. I can run the rest of the nails all the way down on this, making sure I'm staying flush with the top and the bottom. Don't want any terrible overhang. Just want it to look nice and pretty when we're done. So that looks good there. So we'll go ahead and throw another one here. Down a little bit more, make sure we're still on. Looks good, looking good. And we'll do the last one on the bottom. Alright, so that looks good. So we're nice and flush everywhere around. Come through and throw a few more in here. All right, so now that we've got our appearance boards up here, nice and flush with where our tabletop is gonna go, tabletop is the next step. So I currently have this flipped upside down. Now, the tabletop measures 72 inches wide, but we wanted that offset. So it's gonna be offset from the frame by 6 inches. Now we have to account for the width of this pallet boards here on both sides. So after measuring, it ends up being 61.25 inches. So we have to subtract that from 72, which gives us 10 3/4. And then we split that in half for an even offset on both sides, which is then going to be 5 3/8 inches. Now what I've done is I've came over and I've measured 5 3/8 on both sides, used my speed square to give myself a guideline. Assuming our friends that made this board did their job right, it's nice and square, then we're going to be good to go. All I'm going to have to do is flip this over, line these lines up, and then we are ready to mount it. Now before we mount the board on the top, what we're going to have to do is come back and we're going to drill pocket holes in the frame of this tabletop here so we can screw into the bottom of this. Now this wood is slightly bowed, so it's just going to happen. It happens with wood. It's always going to happen. So we always want our bow for a tabletop to be facing up. So we want the curvature of our bow facing up, because if we do it just like this, it's going to be a real hard time pulling it down. So we have to flip this over, make sure our bow is facing the right way, very slight, and then after I get the pocket holes drilled, we'll attach the tabletop. This is perfect. All the way down, nice and flush. Now, I actually ended up deciding against the pocket holes. Why did I decide against the pocket holes? Well, the pocket holes just looked, they looked a little sketchy after I started drilling them. And I had the right length screws for it, but I decided, you know what, I can just go directly in from the bottom. So what I ended up doing was I came in from the bottom of the 2x4s down here. Hopefully you can see this. And what I figured out was, you know what, I'm just going to go through the bottom, and because we have an 1.5 inch piece of 2x4 down here, and the tabletop is 3/4 inch, that gives us 2.25 inch. So 2 inch screws buried just a little bit into the 2x4 actually make it a perfect fit. So it pulled it down super nicely. It is nice and flush all the way around, nice and flat. And then I came back with some 3-inch screws and went into the appearance board here to give it even a little bit more stability and security. So these 3-inch screws, you got 2.5 inches here and 3/4 inch up here. So we're looking at 3.25 inches. So this screw here stops at the tabletop just about right there. and it is perfect. Everything is nice and lined up. Loving the way that this is turning out right now. So we are right rolling along. Next, we're gonna add on the trim on the bottom. All right, for the next part of this, so I'm gonna go ahead and put on our trim down here at the bottom. Now the stain actually came out really good choice. Early American was the stain color for this, so it does blend in very well. So for this, I've already cut my first 45 here, so I'm gonna do 45 degrees around just so it cleans it up, brings it all together a lot. So what I wanna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and line the bottom cut of this, the bottom part here with the end of this. And I just wanna make sure that it's nice and flush. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tack it in with just one little finish nail just to hold it in place so I can go down to the other side and mark with a pencil on the back my next cut. So just by doing that, it eliminates the need for me having to measure. You can do it like this. If you want to measure your inside cut to your inside cut, by all means you can, but I find this a little bit more accurate, but that's just me. To each their own. All right, so right there, that is where my next 45 is going to be. That'll bring me flush edge to edge. All right, so I've got my other 45 cut on here. My edges are perfect, nice and lined up. So now I'm just going to run down the line with my finish nailer and get this attached. That's it. So now I have to do the two sides. Super easy for the two sides. 145 degree to meet up to this one, and the other one is just going to be a straight 90-degree cut to bring it to the back end of the bar. That's it. So go ahead and get those cut. 45 degrees, 0 or 90 on the other side at the right length, and you're all set for the bottom trim. All right, so another day of working on this thing is finished. Got the tabletop done, got the trim on the bottom done, got all of the appearance boards on the back side done, as well as the inside completed. So the only thing I have left to do is to prep the bar top and the trim that's gonna go along with it to get ready for stain and polyurethane coating. So I'm gonna sand this tomorrow. It's already pretty late, so I'm gonna hang it up for the night. Gonna get this sanded down super nice and smooth. We'll get the trim installed, and then we will stain everything that needs staining, install the lights that are gonna go underneath, have some nice LED strip lights that'll go there for a nice glow, and then that will be it, we'll be done. So pretty much only one more day of work on this thing, aside from waiting for the stain to dry, the polyurethane to dry, so I can sand it, make it smoother, glossier, all that. So all in all, as far as working goes, another day, and then until it's completely done, it's probably gonna be about 3 or 4 days. All right, so I've went ahead, actually, I've taken the tabletop back off because I had an epiphany. All right, so these are the LED lights that are gonna go on the bottom of the tabletop, just to give it that kind of ambient recessed lighting. Very simple, just a simple LED strip here. They're USB battery powered. So the control box is this. So what I've done already over here is I've routed out a channel. So the wire for this will run through this channel. It'll be nice and hidden. And that way I can stick the control box right to the bottom of the tabletop. So it's gonna sit just like this once the tabletop is on there, and this wire will be nicely hidden here underneath of the tabletop in that channel that I've done. And on the other side, you can just open this just like that, change the batteries if you need to. And there's a simple on-off switch as well. So I'm actually gonna mount it this way so I can just turn it on the bottom and take it off, and then it'll reattach. And then the lights will double-sided tape to the bottom of the tabletop. There's just 3M double-sided adhesive on the other side. So I've already done this side just so you can see what it's gonna look like. I'll show you how to do the other side, and you're gonna need yourself a palm router with a routing bit for channels. All right, so here we have palm router. This is just a cheap Bosch palm router, but it works great. So the first thing that we want to do here is we want to see where our channel's going. Now, since I've already mounted the tabletop, there's a hole right here, and this hole is where the tabletop is going to mount, so I want to make sure I don't hit that. I'm just going to take my palm router here and just kind of position this where the router bit is going to go, just to make sure that I don't hit that hole and I can still route my channel through without any obstructions. So after I've done that, what I'm going to do is grab a speed square here. And for this, I'm gonna go ahead, just gonna set it just like this, right around the edge of the palm router, move it out of the way, and then drop my square in there. Okay, so that's where my channel is going to go. And that way I can take my scrap piece of wood here, line it up with the speed square, and then I'll have a nice straight channel. Now, the straightness of the channel is not super important. I just like my stuff to be square, just as long as it's running through there and you can get your wire through there. Now remember, we can screw into this because the tabletop's going to cover it, so the holes that we make from doing that are not going to matter that much. So let me get the router bit installed, and then we can go ahead and route this channel. All right, so I've got the router bit installed. It's sticking out a lot, about 1/2 inch, and we don't need a 1/2 inch deep channel, so we can adjust the router, bring the face down here, about 1/4 inch will do, and then we'll just go ahead and snap it back into place. So now we have the router set up, and it's gonna fit. It's gonna hit right there. That's fine. It's still gonna miss our screw hole there, barely, but it will miss. All right, so with the router, remember when you're using a router, the router is gonna spin clockwise, so we don't wanna push the router clockwise. We actually wanna push against it. So while the router is spinning clockwise, we need to push from left to right, and it'll give us more control. I'm gonna turn this on. And there we have a very nice channel that our wire is going to run through. So we'll grab this, just make sure, test it out. And that's it. Perfect depth right there. It's perfect depth for that wire. So now our wires are going to be hidden on both sides. All right, so now I figure, I guess since I'm down here and already doing this, we'll go ahead, get these lights installed. And these lights are pretty cheap, and they're actually the ones that you can cut. So I can cut these where they meet in the middle, and then I won't have to worry about any overhang or too much lighting in one spot. So I'll leave a link in the description of this video if you guys want to build a bar like this and you want these lights, these simple lights like this. They're actually pretty bright. They take 4 AA batteries and they're pretty bright, but I'm having a little trouble getting this 3M tape covering off here. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's get these going. Just bring them out to here. All right, so that's not bad. That's pretty good. Got a nice string of lights in there. Go ahead and do the other side now. All right, so the lights are installed, and it's like the perfect brightness for me. Like absolutely the perfect brightness. I thought they were gonna be too bright, but luckily there's a brightness controller, but on the highest setting, it's just a nice ambient light coming from underneath of the bar. And they also have a little remote control that you can change colors with. So I'm putting them on yellow right now. So now the bar is yellow. It also has a few music settings as well as like a fade setting, and you can change it to do a few colors at a time to where it'll jump colors. And that's pretty cool. So actually really good purchase. They're only about 16 bucks on Amazon. So that's not bad at all. So this is actually going to look even better once I get the trim around the bar top, because then it'll be even more recessed, be more hidden, just a nice glow underneath the bar. Really happy with this. This is a nice touch. All right, lights are installed. Bottom trim is on. The whole inside and back side of the bar is done. So now I'm on the home stretch. And for this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start working on the bar top here. Now, if you watch part 1 of this video, I talked about sanding it down. It's pretty smooth. It does come pretty smooth from the factory, but it's just not smooth enough for me. I never really trust the sanded stuff, or so they say. I can still feel some burrs and some little pieces of wood sticking up on the tabletop. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go through 3 different passes. Now normally, if this wasn't pre-sanded, or at least a little bit pre-sanded, I'd start with 80 grit and work my way up. But instead, I'm gonna start at 120 and go to 220, and then 320 is gonna be the finish sand. So that's gonna make it real nice and real smooth. I'm gonna do 3 coats of polyurethane on this to make sure it's nice and hard, extremely glossy. It's gonna be a really nice looking bar top. So again, 120, 220, and 320 is what I'm gonna do to get this thing prepared. And I'm just using a Black & Decker orbital sander. This thing is real cheap, like 25 bucks, works great. It's corded, plugs into the wall, not wireless, but with the cord, you'll never have to worry about running out of battery. So I'm gonna get started. All right, I'm all done sanding, so now I have to go back. These are Tack Cloths. They're pretty sticky, like really loose woven cotton, and they are great for picking up sawdust inside. You see if I do that, sawdust all over my hands. So I blew it off with my air compressor first, but I still want to go back with this, take up any remaining sawdust for the stain and the polyurethanes. You get that stuff in there, then it doesn't stick well, you have off colors, it doesn't look right. So I'm going to go over the whole thing with one of these Tack Cloths and get any remaining sawdust up. And then after that, I am ready to start cutting the trim that's going to go on top. I'm going to sand that down by hand after I install it, and we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, so now I'm going to get into adding the molding to this. So this molding here is 1/4 inch round, and it's just it's literally just like 1/4 of a circle here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put it on the inside edges of this bar to keep anything from sliding off of it. That way, if you slide something around like a glass or a bottle of liquor or anything like that, it's not just going to go flying off the edge. So my plan for this is we're going to put this on the edge. It's going to sit on the edge like that, and then I have the decorative molding, the same pieces that we used on the bottom of the bar, that are going to come up and come flush with the top of this. So it's going to hide the edges of our tabletop here and give a nice surface where nothing will slide off. So what I'll need to do with this is I'm going to cut 45-degree angles on the inside of this to line it up with the edges of the bar top. So I'll have to do that. My outside to outside are going to be 72 inches. And then I'm going to have to do 145 on the sides and cut it off flush with the back of the tabletop. So I'll go ahead and get those cut, and then we can get them attached. All right, I got all my pieces cut now. So I got the 2 sides, this one, and I have 13 clamps. Really, you can never have enough wood clamps. Like, I don't even have enough. I have 13, and none of them are actually big. These are the biggest ones I have. They're 4 inches. I got to get some more. But you can never have enough wood clamps. For this one, I'm using 13. I'm going to use 7 on the front, 3 on the sides. So basically what I want to do here is, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Tight Bond wood glue, and I'm just going to run a bead all the way down this. And we're just going to line this up and flush it up with the edge here, and then clamp it and let it sit. I can't remember exactly how long this takes to dry. Clamp for a minimum of 30 minutes. Do not stress joints for 24 hours. So this one here doesn't take that long to get hard, but for me, I'm probably going to let it sit for probably 2 or 3 hours before I actually come take the clamps off. That way it'll get a nice bond going, and then from there we can cut the molding that's going to go on the front of this. All right, so I've got my molding on now, but now I have this. I've got a little bit of glue squeeze out here, and this runs all the way around. So what do we want to do about this? Well, we actually want to do nothing about it right now. What we're going to do here is we're going to wait for this glue to dry. Instinctually, you probably want to go grab a rag and try to wipe it up. Well, that's not actually what you want to do. You want to wait for this to dry, because the more you grab a rag and spread it around, you're covering a larger surface area with glue, and stain and wood glue and polyurethane and wood glue are like oil and water. So basically, when you go to stain this and you have all of that wood glue rubbed around, you're going to have some very light spots that do not want to stain. So all we're going to do is we're just going to wait for this to dry, and then we're just going to go grab a wood chisel, which I'll show you once this does dry, and we're just going to go in here and just scrape this up from both sides. That way we're not messing with a huge area of the wood, and then we can come back with something like a detail sander or just fine grit sandpaper by hand and get up any of that remaining residue. So definitely don't get any rags and spread this around. You're just going to make a larger mess for yourself. So now the waiting begins. We're going to wait 2 to 3 hours. I'll come by, take the clamps off, and we'll see if the wood glue is dry enough for me to get it off with the chisel. All right, so it's been a few hours since I put the glue down. It's a little bit tacky still, but it's good enough for us to get off. So I got my chisel here, just a regular old wood chisel. So when you want to come back and get your glue off, you're just going to come and run down your line, but make sure you don't dig into the wood. If you dig into the wood, then that's a problem. So you can start out this way, get a nice push going, or you can start up here, try to break it off on the edge. And once you get a good chunk of it loose, and you'll just be able to run your chisel down and just start taking off this excess glue squeeze out. And then once all this stuff is gone, we can just get rid of it, and we'll let anything that's still underneath of the chunks that we're taking off dry. And then we can come back with just some high grit sandpaper or a detail sander and run it down there and get any of that remaining residue off. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take some time to get all of the remaining glue off of this, all the squeeze out, and then I will cut my appearance molding or decorative molding to go onto the outside of this, and then we will be ready to stain. All right, I've got all my molding pieces cut now. I got the big piece here for the front, the two sides are done. So before I attach this, what I wanna do is I'm gonna put some wood glue on the front of this. Wanna make sure it's nice and secure. So we're gonna get this with wood glue and the finish nailer. We wanna have both of them for a lot more security, and we wanna make sure there's no gaps in between this molding and our little quarter round molding here. So I'm just gonna do that by hand this time instead of trying to spread it like this, having it drip all over the floor. Plus I don't want too much. I don't want any squeeze out on the top. On the bottom is fine, is a little bit, but assuming that we are very careful with this, we shouldn't really have any squeeze out at all, because we're not really doing too much here. We just want to put some on there, make sure it's just a nice thin layer of glue here to keep it nice and attached. So I'm going to do this all the way down. All right, so the molding is on and the stain is applied. This thing is looking so great. I cannot wait to put the polyurethane on this, make the top nice and shiny and smooth. It's gonna be a great bar. I've got a couple more things to do to it, a couple more accessories, and then it will be 100% completed. All right, so here we go. Finished product, and look at that glossy bar top. So the way I achieved this glossy bar top is with Minwax Gloss Polyurethane, and this is the oil-based one. So I did this in 3 coats. The first coat that I put down, I just did a nice thin coat of it. You wait 3 to 4 hours, and then you want to do a dry sand of that after 3 to 4 hours. Very light dry sand with 220 grit sandpaper. Then you'll come back after that and apply your second coat. Once you apply the second coat, you're going to wait 24 hours. So after 24 hours and it's nice and hard, you're going to come back with 320 grit sandpaper and give it a good wet sand. So you want to soak your sandpaper in some water and then wet sand it down and then dry it off. Right after that, you can apply your third coat, and this is what you'll end up with. So this is the bar, this is it. It is all done and finished, and I am super happy with the way that it turned out. And the last thing I did here was just a nice little touch on the back. So we've got some bottle openers here. Bottle openers on both sides. There's one down on the other side as well. So that is it, guys. That is the bar build with reclaimed wood and a super nice glossy tabletop. All right, everybody. Thanks for checking out this 2-part series to building a reclaimed wood bar. I had a lot of fun making this. If you have any questions or comments about the build, leave them down below. Or if you have any general carpentry or woodworking questions, I'll do my best to give you a great answer. Also, leave those down in the comment section below. If you like the video, don't forget to leave it a thumbs up so it gets around and more people see it. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel for more woodworking stuff and RuneScape videos. I'm going to be doing a little bit of both here and there as I see fit. So once again, guys, thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody.